My years of teaching have taught me it's a vocation. People should not enter the profession if they don't like children, number one, if they are going in for long holidays, number two, or the pension, number three. Because if you want to do your job well, it's a vocation, and you need the patience and you need the genuine interest in the children, because they can tell. Children can tell who's interested and who's not interested.
Absolutely.
This podcast is part of the GK Media Studios Creators Network, helping people tell their stories. Become a storyteller today and learn about our podcaster network at gkmediastudios.com.
Hello and welcome to the show. In today's episode, we have my friend and my previous client, Maria, who is a delight to hear too. And welcome, Maria. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. And it's quite extraordinary what we are doing today, because Maria was never a guest in the podcast, is it?
That's correct. I've never sat in a studio like this before, so it is a little bit intimidating, I must say.
But from these extraordinary acts or experiences, always comes something. It's beyond our comfort zone, but it's always expanding our potential, I'd say.
I understand. I'm kind of used to being outside my comfort zone a lot, so maybe this is going to be very good.
Good. So let me to tell you a little bit about Maria, in the sense of she came to me last September, if I remember well, as a potential client. She was looking for some answers in her health journey. And what surprised me was that despite of her age, and then I'm not saying that she's old, despite of her age, she was very towards holistic approach and very much looking for answers in regard to her health beyond the traditional medical system. Why is that? What brought you to this point in life?
I think I always had an interest in natural products, good food, and holistic medicine, be it modalities like Reiki, IET, different modalities like that, which I would have been drawn to over the years. But because I was in a very high-powered job, not high-powered in the sense of business, I was a primary school teacher, and I went on to become a primary school teaching principal, which is a very demanding job. And I suppose I was rearing my children practically on my own for a number of years, and just realised, I suppose, that my stress levels were not at the optimal because of having to keep going and keep going. And I took early retirement with a view to doing something else. I still haven't figured out what that something else is, but I worked for 2 years in the Children's Grief Centre in Limerick with Sister Helen. And it was the most amazing experience working again with children, which I feel is my calling in life in some respect. But again, that finished last June, and I'm a year out of work. Well, out of
Okay, so I didn't realize that. Okay. So I didn't realize that was so soon after you finished work when you came. Okay.
And I decided, right, I have time. Well, I visited my son in New Zealand and my daughter in Canada, and there were a few ups and downs that year. And I decided when I came back in September, I have time. I need to devote it to me. And I had seen one or two, I suppose, therapists at different stages, and I had been to nutritionists, but nothing really resonated enough that I wanted to keep going with those particular people. So I attend a naturopathic doctor, functional medicine doctor in Ennis, and he pointed me in the direction of Smiranda because I wasn't happy with my gut issues, for want of a better word. I thought, right, great. So I met Smiranda, and she gave me the free consultation, which lasted for as long as I needed, or she felt I needed, which was well over an hour. It was probably 2 hours, could have been longer. We just clicked straight away. And she gave me the option of not continuing if I felt I wasn't comfortable, which I really appreciated. Now, most therapists do that, but I felt she was genuine, and I felt I could actually say to her, I do or I don't want to continue, and she wouldn't have taken it personally, which was very important. So the long and the short of it is I continued my journey with Smerenda, and I thought I was going on a nutrition journey, but in fact it was a bigger journey than that, and it was getting to know me, the me that I suppose I hadn't really given time to since I was 19, since I started teaching. And the decades of life and the ebb and flow and the dramas and the different things that affect your health, basically. I felt it was time to continue and do something about it. So the journey has been amazing.
I see the transformation in you, because when you came to me last September, the levels of stress were deeper or higher than now. What was what you felt that was the magnet? What kept you after the first consultation? So obvious you felt heard and seen and comfortable to say no if you were not comfortable.
Yes,
Yeah.
I first of all felt you had a lot to offer, because you were coming from the holistic aspect of dealing with everything, and that resonated with my inner belief. I felt I could talk to you. I wasn't going to be judged, and I felt I basically could say anything to you. And I felt that very quickly in the first consultation. And that to me was very important, because it's only by being truthful and honest that a person gets the true measure of you.
Yeah, I'm not a good salesperson, people are saying, because I give a lot. I don't have measurements. So when I look at each consultation, like it's the first and the last.
Yes.
So I want to get out there so much value for the person in front of me as I feel that that person deserves. That would be me. But yeah.
I think it could be said about you that you're maybe, I put this in parentheses, too authentic. But I don't think you can be too authentic, because that is the way I've lived my life in my different professions. I am me, and you can accept me for me or you needn't. And basically I've learned at this stage that it's your problem if you don't accept me for me.
Yes.
So I think you're probably thinking the same.
Yes, 100%. Do you think, from your own experience, we are the type of persons who are burning out too fast because of that?
Yes. I would agree, because I would feel I give a lot to whatever I do, even if it's a phone conversation with somebody. It will resonate with me afterwards. And I had a conversation with a lovely girl yesterday, and I was in bed last night and I woke at 4:00 and I was thinking about, gosh, I better say that to that person. I was thinking about her, and that was the way I did my teaching. I never switched off. I thought about kids all the time, and I thought, even if I had said something that I thought might be misconstrued, I would always go back the following day and say, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean what I said yesterday, or if you misunderstood me, this is what I meant. So that drains you, because you are constantly thinking of, I suppose, the other person. And maybe that leads into a bit of people pleasing, which I know I was, choosing people's opinion, or I was wanting to please all the time, everybody. And I never stopped and thought about pleasing me. And you suddenly use the phrase, choose you or choose me. I choose me. And I was thinking about that yesterday before I came up, and I was saying, if I was asked to say, how do you choose you in one or two situations, what would I actually say? I don't know, should I say? What do you think?
Yes.
The first one is going to be very controversial, because it was around the vaccines. And I chose immediately from the start that it wasn't for me. I chose to be unvaccinated. I chose to do what I wanted to do for my body, against medical advice, against my family, against my 2 children. There was a lot of people. I lost friendships over it. But I gained so many good friends and people that supported me, and that has empowered me hugely to continue choosing me. And I knew it was the right decision, especially after
what it comes up now.
Pardon?
After it comes up now more and more.
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
And I chose, I'm on the lookout for something else to do. I'm taking my time with that. I know it'll happen when the time is right. So I've turned down 2 opportunities in the last 6 months. I almost jumped at them, because I was so thrilled somebody wanted me, to work with them, and saw my authenticity. And that's what they said, you're authentic, you're real, you actually tell the truth, and it's you. And I thought, wow, I want to grab this. And then I went home and I thought about it, and little voice in my head, which was Smiranda's voice, said, always trust your gut. So I thought, what is my gut saying about this? And my gut said no. And I said no. And then I went back on it and I thought, maybe I will. And I had another conversation, and no, I ended up sticking to my choice, and I knew it was the right choice. For me, I would have liked to have helped, because that was my nature, to jump in and say, oh yeah, I can help, I can offer this, I can offer that. And then I would have been drained, and it wouldn't have suited me, and I would have ended up exhausted in square one again. So there were two situations that I definitely chose me, and they worked out 100%.
Well done. And how did you feel after? So after the emotion dissolved, and after you went through that process, and then now being distant from the experience, how do you feel?
Oh, I just feel happy. I feel I made the right choice. But I also feel I'm listening more to my body and the signals it's giving me, and that's because of Smiranda's education on listening to your body. My gut used to be constantly talking to me, and I just ignored it. One example is I used to try to eat a lot of raw veg. I mean, I was at the stage I was eating heads of broccoli with tubs of hummus and thinking, they're both very healthy, it's what I need, and I was packing it in, and my poor gut was crying in every single way, and I didn't listen. But now I listen, and when the little gurgle comes, I say, right, that food, my gut doesn't like that food, I'm going to stop. That's only one part, but discovering, I suppose, that I can say no, and that usually the other person doesn't mind.
Yes, that's a surprise about what I call boundary. Okay, it's a whole discussion there about boundaries. But when the best thing what I can say is, don't be afraid, because it's only you. It's you have a story in your head telling yourself about what will happen if you put that boundary. Usually the other person does not give a flying about it.
Absolutely.
And it's just telling them, hello, I took ownership of my time, or of my own body, or of my own, and it's harder for you than it is for the other person to accept.
Absolutely. And I was constant yes person. We'll go here tonight. Oh yeah. And then I would be in bad form, and I'd be cranky, and a row might ensue, or I would just be not in good form, and I'd be asked, what's wrong with you? You're not in good form. And I'd be thinking, I made a decision to suit you, and I didn't suit myself, and now I don't really want to be here, and now I'm taking it out on you, and blah, 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 which is very wrong. So now I just say, no, I don't actually feel like doing that. And
I
they don't
wouldn't say
mind.
it's wrong. I think it's very normal that happens, but it is because of that. So it's not you had a wrong response. You had a very normal response, but the cause of that response could have been different.
Yes, absolutely. So now I'm quite, I won't say forward, but I'm quite decisive in saying yes and no. And I know when I make a wrong decision now, I say, I knew I should have said no. Your own fault now. But I don't beat myself up over it. I just take cognizance of what I've done or what I've said, and that I won't do that again.
Yes, exactly. So we take the learnings.
Yes, the learning. It's all a learning curve.
From the experience.
Yes.
I know you are against the vaccine, and let's call it. I think this podcast is not going to be any different than I am, authentic and in integrity. Not having a vaccine, it's exactly as normal as having the vaccine. From my point of view, it's a choice. I don't understand why we were forced to make a decision in having it. I still don't, because there was not enough evidence showing that
absolutely that they were effective, and it's shown the opposite. The statistics,
unfortunately,
I was just reading excess deaths this morning from RIP, and excess deaths is more than what's predicted for a particular period, and we are skyrocketing in Ireland. There's so many extra excess deaths, and I pointed towards that. That's just my own personal opinion, and I have to state that I have nothing against anybody who got the vaccination, because an awful lot of people had to get it for their work, or else they would have lost their jobs. They had to get it to visit people in nursing homes, but which I think was scandalous, the way we were.
I think my compassionate self says they didn't know any better.
No, they
They
didn't.
definitely, people who jumped on it, they trust the system and they followed and that's where the being a sheeple, how we say at home, with my partner, doesn't do you any good.
No,
it's playing its.
And I would have thought I was a sheep because my mother would have often said to me, "You've no backbone." And that stayed with me for many years. And I thought, by God, have I got a backbone now? She told me a story about thalidomide when I was very young. And she said, I was offered thalidomide. And she said, I had it sitting on the table with morning sickness, looking at it. The doctor gave it to me. And she said, I decided not to take the tablet or whatever it was. And she said, don't ever put anything into your body that you don't need. And at the beginning of COVID, I know, and that, I mean, I would have got on better with my father, I would have thought, than my mum. And yes.
That was what your mom said to you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yet, since she died 7 years ago, she's coming back to haunt me in a good way. Her phrases, her advice, every single day I quote something she said, or like that, the advice about, I'm getting teary now thinking of my mum. So yeah. That's why thank you, Mum. That's why I just didn't do it. And I saw the rollout, and I saw the Cattle Martish Way, the vaccination centres were set up all over the world. And something told me in my brain, hang on a minute, that's like a McDonald's food chain. Pardon, excuse me, I don't mean to diss McDonald's either.
We do.
And I thought it was too good to be true. And I just see Big Pharma making loads of money, and I've always been against that. And I suppose the whole thing just, a friend actually said to me during it, she said, of all people, I thought you'd be the one to take the vaccine. And I said, you obviously thought I had so little intelligence. I joked about it afterwards, but yeah.
And no, we don't say that people who took the vaccine are less intelligent by no means.
No. I was only speaking personally, because this person would have always said certain things about me.
That tells you how little people know about you.
Yes, and possibly this person would have known me better than most.
Yeah,
but I am a very private person, and people just see the outside and they see the sunny personality, and they don't really. It's the same with anybody. We don't know what goes on in anyone's lives.
Yeah,
I mean, look at people who commit suicide. God love them. They're tortured, and nobody sees it because they could be the life and soul of the party, and that's what people expect. And then it's a shock when those people take their own lives, which is so sad.
What brought you to working with children?
I'd love to think there was a really meaningful story behind that, but the truth is I followed my best friend into Mary I. We were both going to the FCJ Coláiste, which is the all-Irish school, so we were pretty bright, and she was very bright. And I remember we even had this conversation yesterday because I met her for lunch. The school were dissing her choice of becoming a teacher. She always wanted to be a teacher. And they said, oh, you will get the points to do medicine, you'll get the points to do something more high-powered. And she just said, no, I want teaching, that's it. So I had enough points for medicine. I decided, I accepted, I got Mary I, which is where we train to be teachers. And then I decided, no, I wanted to do medicine. And then I decided, right. And then I went back on my decision. I said, no, I'll go to Mary I. So it wasn't a burning desire in me to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I didn't enjoy my years in college, I felt it was very restrictive. I felt teaching practice was the scariest thing I ever did. All the notes, all the preparation, being in the classroom, having people look at you at the end of the room, assessing you.
Yeah. I know that because I trained as a teacher.
You didn't know that?
Okay, yeah, that was my first qualification.
All right. Yeah. And it was absolutely scary. And I thought, oh God, right. I loved the children. That was a given. From get-go, I loved the interaction in the classroom. But I just thought, oh God. Anyway, I qualified and got my first teaching job. I was working as a ground hostess in Aer Lingus for the summer, and come September I had to apply for jobs because my mother said, you're not going to stay in Aer Lingus forever because it's only temporary, so you need to start applying for jobs. And I got a lovely job in a country school in Limerick. Well, it's kind of a town school. And I just had a group of infants in my first year, and I wanted to stay with them forever. I loved them so much. I remember they used to sit up on the table beside me. I was only 19, so it was like, it was lovely. And I had a very good principal, Paddy Rowan. He's since has died, and he encouraged me a lot. And I loved my teaching there. Really, really loved it.
What part of you got fulfillment from that?
It was when I closed my door every day and had my interaction with the children. It was so interesting knowing that you had in the palm of your hand the lives of 24 to 30, over 30 when we started, because it was back in the 80s or the 90s, and the classes were big. So we had a lot of children. I mean, I think I might have had 37 at one stage in a class. And knowing that you had an influence on their lives, because they're like sponges.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
They usually think teacher is right, because I know I have my own kids and they come home and mom is wrong and teacher is right. So I'm well used to that scenario or that dynamic. But I was always conscious of that, and always conscious that you could ruin somebody's life forever. And my years of teaching have taught me it's a vocation. People should not enter the profession if they don't like children, number one, if they are going in for long holidays, number two, or the pension, number three. Because if you want to do your job well, it's a vocation, and you need the patience and you need the genuine interest in the children, because they can tell. Children can tell who's interested and who's not interested.
Absolutely.
And I never had a discipline problem in all my years teaching, because I think I met children 9.9 of the way. That was my aim anyway. So it was never a job to me. And when I became principal for the last 12 years of my teaching career, I hated the office work. I felt I was stymied. I was like a prisoner. Paperwork never did it for me anyway. But I had brilliant secretaries which took over all that, and I had a fantastic S&A, and I let them run whatever of the ancillary stuff. I dealt with the kids and the parents, and that was what I liked best, closing my door and dealing with the kids.
Yeah. Beautiful. I can see you that you're brightening up when you're talking. Lightening
completely.
Up, so yeah.
And you don't know, it's like, is it the phrase from Forrest Gump, life is like a box of chocolates. You don't know what you're going to get on any given day. And that was the excitement for me.
Excitement, yeah. I'm going to the retirement life. I know probably was a little bit of surprise element there, and you didn't like that much as static and all that. I know you are very active and you keep active, and that's for me and what I'm looking at as an example. I'd like a majority of people your age to do what you are doing physically and keeping active. I think that's a huge part in health. Tell me, how did you process that? Or are you still very much processing the difference in active, being in school, and then the retirement? And
I like to have structure in my day. So for the last year, I was traveling a lot because my son had a baby in New Zealand. So I've been over, I suppose, for 3 or 4 months out of the last year between 2 visits, and that took care of that. I don't like not being active. I don't like not having a routine. It doesn't sit easily with me after so many years of work and routine. I have structured my day in such a way that with Smiranda's help and a Qigong therapist called Rainer, I've actually do certain things in the morning, and I have been doing Pilates for years. I have been going to the gym for years, since I was 16. I have started yoga as well for the mind, to calm the mind, because I do find I have a monkey mind. It's quite busy and quite active, which is increasing stress levels, which isn't great. I have an awful lot of friends. Socially, I would meet a lot of people on a daily basis. But the structure of grounding myself in the morning on the grass for a few minutes, doing a few mobility exercises just to get me started, get rid of the aches and pains out of the joints when you wake up. And then my ritual would be my lemon and water, my coffee, my exercise class, usually in the morning someplace, and a walk. Definitely my day. I try to get a walk in.
You answered my question, my next question. But I think because you are giving so much, I think that's your way to fill your cup. And you are very careful to do that. Am I right? You are very careful to have your cup filled up before you are giving.
Yes, but I'm still not great. Right. I'm still have to tweak it a bit more.
Now, there is always room for improvement.
Yes.
But I think you are aware, because definitely that's why you planned that and you blocked time in your day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I do try. And some weeks it's haywire. This week in particular was haywire. But, my plan didn't go to plan. But it it was still fulfilling a lot in other ways, but I like to have that routine because it sets me up for the day and I feel I'm more productive. Now, I've started journaling. I don't do it every day. Miranda suggested that when we were doing our client consultations, and I've suggested that to a few people since who have similar situations or have been in difficulty or whatever. I do believe it's important when there's an issue bothering you that you journal about it.
Yeah, it's therapeutic journaling is called as a tool, and I think plays its major role in unpacking patterns.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're talking about patterns there. The patterns are, it's only, I suppose, when you do stop and I'm conscious of people listening to this probably who are working and they don't have as much time as I do. It's only since I have the time that I can adopt these practices, and they do make a difference. They're not just cliches. Before I would have thought, oh yeah, love yourself, what a cliche. But when you iron it out and look at the different parts of that phrase, it's definitely true. Now, I don't go around saying I love myself. I have all my faults and failings, and I beat myself up a bit, but it's in choosing yourself that you love yourself.
I know you are still going to the mass and you are playing a role in that. What part of you feels uncomfortable with I love myself?
I suppose maybe it's probably going back to childhood when you were told don't look in the mirror, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong in saying that. I suppose I feel selfish, but then it's about trying to please other people as opposed to pleasing yourself. So I am changing in that respect. Definitely, there has been a change.
And what would you advise someone if you were not me? Okay, so I'm probably from the other side of the fence, but I'm more comfortable to practice self-love and put myself first and all that. Someone who is not as familiar with those habits and acts of self-love, where would you start with them? Because our listeners and people who are watching us that are probably resonated more with you, not with me.
Right.
Feeling completely uncomfortable in an act of self-love, feeling that they are selfish if they do what you gave examples of. What would be your advice or approach?
I suppose I would listen to their story, first of all, and see their family dynamic. You see, if a person's living on their own, it's going to be different from a person living in a marriage or in a family situation. And if the person is in an abusive relationship, which can often be the case, they mightn't even realise that. And they've been so conditioned that they can't see beyond what's going on in their lives. Now, we'll just take it from a person who has the space to do it. I suppose I would start, I think, with journaling, to be honest. I think I would start and ask them to journal about what they like about themselves and what they don't like. And then it would ensue another conversation. Well, look at what you said, that what you don't like. Why don't you like that? And maybe question them a bit more.
Yes.
To see what the root of it is, because it could be a childhood pattern as well. And then you need to do the inner child work and get rid of a belief that they have held for years. And I learned from you that we keep returning. Is it our subconscious or conscious? It's our subconscious.
Yeah.
The subconscious mind keeps taking us back to patterns and habits.
Yeah.
And that's how people get addictions as well, because you go back to the habit that worked for you. And I suppose that has to be pointed out before it can be examined and extrapolated and torn apart. And people have to recognize that this is the old pattern. Is this serving the new me? And then you slowly but surely unravel that.
Yeah, it's very much connected to your intention. Is it, you just said it there, is it serving my new me? Is this serving my new me?
Yes, and you begin to question, but it is very difficult in the beginning to change the patterns of a lifetime.
I can relate to that.
And especially depending on the age of the person. If you have decades behind you and the patterns are learned since childhood, it is extremely difficult to unravel them. And you have to be genuinely interested in doing it. You have to, I mean, I could think of a friend who's constantly dieting. But yet, when I look at what she's putting into her mouth, I say, you're not serious about dieting. And by the way, Noreen, if you're listening, it's not you. So you have to be serious. You have to be genuinely committed. Thank you. That's a better word. You have to be committed to wanting to change. And then you will see change. And you have to have the time. I mean, when you're working and when children are dragging out of you, it is extremely difficult.
It is harder, yeah.
It is much harder. But I still feel...
But also, by saying that, I see clients or people around me, not necessarily my clients, that they give up on changing themselves after they retire.
I think I was actually listening to Dr. Mark Hyman this morning. I mean, it was you recommended him. I signed up for his podcasts, and there was one on Alzheimer's with another female doctor this morning. I was listening to it coming up in the car, and I'm interested in Alzheimer's and dementia because my mother, God rest her, died of that. She had it for the 4 years before she died, and another family member died of it. And I would have an interest for myself in that in case I have early signs or will present with early signs later in life. So I was listening, and they were just saying that these things can be reversed holistically, and exercise and diet are so important. So I would think after retirement, because your brain goes more stagnant, I was doing
naturally
6th class maths and they were coming to me like that. And now I'm thinking, if I had to go back into 6th class maths, would I be the same? And I have another friend who taught herself, well, she didn't teach herself, she started learning the violin, and now she's doing her grade 8 exam.
I have a 70-year-old client and she's playing 2 instruments at the moment.
I think that is amazing. Yeah. People take up bridge. People do this to keep their brain healthy and to keep their mind active. And if you look at the blue zone countries in the world, one of the things they say is community is very important. So it's very important to keep your network of friends and your community around you.
Because you move the focus. You move the focus on your own problems and soaking in and just ruminating all the time to serving and giving.
Yes.
But just to make sure that you have your cup filled up.
That's the important thing, to get that balance right, which I personally would find hard, but I'm getting better at it. But I have the time.
Oh, you definitely
to do it.
Like, I can confirm that you are. Like, definitely.
I'm definitely changed.
Yeah.
And I think grandparents play a huge role.
And we don't aim for perfectionism.
Oh, God, no.
So, as I always say, with a new habit, being consistent is the key.
Absolutely.
It's better than going all the time in 10 on a scale from 1 to 10.
Yes.
When you don't want to do it, commit to a 1 step.
Yes.
Instead of aiming for 10 and doing nothing.
And my brain would race always to the end and say, that's the goal. And I'd forget that and I mean, all the great philosophers have said it. It's putting one foot in front of the other and 1 step at a time. And it's absolutely true.
We are reading the same book at the moment.
Which one? Because I have about 3 on the go.
Okay, next question.
Actually, that retirement does give you the time to read. And I met my sister-in-law yesterday, and she was shocked because I was never a reader. And she said, I can't believe you're reading loads. Not that I'm actually reading, she didn't say that you're reading loads. And I said, yeah, I'm reading loads and loads of books. I can't get enough books. Now I have my light books for when I go to bed, which don't stress my brain. And then I have my heavier ones for the middle of the day, if I want to read of something that's going to inspire me and make sense and that I can keep in my brain at the early hours of the day rather than late at night, which will keep me buzzing all night.
Yes, very good observation there. So, so the book Wellbeing Begins With You. Which is based on Qigong philosophy. And that was at the beginning, I started that book, as you said, I have 3 started. And this book was at the beginning of the year when you start and you are more willing to learn. And I found quite overwhelming. Nothing to do with book, was with
just
what
with your
went
state
on
at the
in
time.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I abandoned it for a while and then I went back. And I just said to myself last week, isn't that great to read 1 page every morning, then to aim for reading 100 pages in a week, and then I put my mind on ease with that. Give yourself permission to do 1 page every day. And sometimes I'm doing 5 pages.
And days you do none at all.
Or sometimes you don't do it at all. And that's exactly what I advise with journaling. Give yourself permission not to do it if you feel like, but consciously, at least a thought of, okay, I have the choice. I can make the choice to do the new habit or not. And just by having that spark of thought, it's something what you train the brain on a new pathway.
Absolutely. And you can train your brain. I mean, this podcast this morning was amazing on brain training and on how, I mean, medical doctors, and I'm not dissing them, we couldn't do without them. But it's kind of like you have Alzheimer's or you have early dementia, come back and I'll recheck you in a year's time. The medicine is okay, but it's not great. It's not going to do a major deal for you. And yet there is so much. It's about an approach, about the individual. Each individual needs a tailor-made approach for them, because they were talking about people that were lacking in B12. Other people had toxins in their body. So one thing does not fit all in any modality.
Exactly. And I think it's very important to find one thing what pleases you when you are retiring. Like when you get to a stage where you are thinking, okay, I'm 60 and you are, okay, I'm not going to die at 60. Like for me, retirement is something like, I don't see myself retired.
I don't want to either see myself retired. I think I'm going to have to go back and study to get a qualification to go into some form of counselling or children counselling in particular, because I really enjoyed my time at the Grief Centre. It wasn't counselling, let me add. It's a listening service. But the listening service, and it's the importance of listening, and you've said that yourself, to be listened, to be heard, to be valued, because when you're heard, you are valued. And that's just basically it. If you have a child in front of you and they know you're not interested, you're looking at your watch, you're flicking your hair, they know they're not the life and soul of your day. And it's so important to listen. And the Grief Centre is a listening service, and it's an amazing service. So I would like to continue in some form of work that way.
What is for you will come your way.
It will, yeah.
It will choose you when the time is right.
I believe that. I believe that.
Yeah. How are you related to faith, and what faith plays in your life? Like what roles plays?
I was raised a Roman Catholic. To say I'm a devout, practicing Roman Catholic, I'm not. I used to take my mum, I made the sacraments, I got married in a church, I say prayers. I used to take my mum to Mass for the 4 years before she died. She didn't know me. She said, "Who's the nice lady who took me to Mass this morning?" "That was me, ma'am." "No, it wasn't you." But yet she got something out of it, because she sang all the hymns. She remembered all the as people with dementia and Alzheimer's do. I can never differentiate between the two. She remembered everything. She could say the prayers. She could say she could sing the songs and know all the words. And she loved her hour at Mass. And then it was the Dominican order. The nuns took over, the Dominican nuns, some powerful women took over that a few years ago, and they were looking for readers. So because I was bringing her to Mass, I said I might as well read on a Sunday morning. So 7 years later, I am still reading at Mass. And I would think a church is a sanctuary. I don't distinguish between any religion. For me, churches are sanctuaries. There's peace in a church. Even the act of lighting a candle is important. You can do that at home just as easily. You can say prayers at home. You can say prayers in the church. I don't think the actual faith, I do have faith, but I'm not saying it's necessarily I agree with everything in my church. Or I don't mean my particular church, but in the Catholic faith. There are things that I think are very wrong. I know there's been a lot of scandals. I'm well aware of that. But I look on the priest as a conduit to God.
Yes,
God is an all-powerful God. It could be any religion. I'm not in any way discriminatory about any religion or anyone's faith. But I do get a sense of peace in the church, and it's an added bonus if the priest happens to give a good sermon, which happens more often than not. Yes. So it's more a little nugget I'll take away. And I meet a community. And again, it's the community thing that I enjoy.
Is very important, yeah.
And you get to know people's lives, and you get to know the people that are working with you. And you just... It's just another, as I say, community and you feel you're giving something without getting paid for it, obviously. And that's also a nice feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know you put exercise on a very top of your priorities. What is your motivation? Because you're doing that. What keeps you? Or what actually? Where did you study? Were you always very active?
I was never very good at team sports. When I was going to school, my mother encouraged me to be academically good. She did not encourage me to do sport. Signs on, I remember being in Irish college, I went every year and I loved it. And I remember playing a camogie match once and I literally ran from the ball because I was too scared. My daughter hears me, she'll kill me. She was the opposite. She was into every sport. But so I kind of started exercising when I was about 16. I remember putting on the Jane Fonda tape on the VCR and I was watching it and I was thinking, I'll do those exercises. And I started then. Then I joined every single gym in Limerick. I've been in every single one of them at different stages. And then I discovered Christian had a Pilates studio out in Castletroy at the time, and I loved the Reformer Pilates. And I still do it. I practiced in Glow on the Ennis Road as well. And I just absolutely love the Reformer Pilates.
Do you see the benefit in your body?
I do, because I haven't done it for the last week because of commitments. And I just find I'm a lot more achy. And I go to Charlotte out in the Pilates room and at the moment. And I find, as any Pilates instructor, Leah and Catherine, ones I've had before, they actually tailor it to the people in the room because there's only about 8 people on the Reformer beds and they don't expect you to do anything. If you can do something today, or you could be, there was one girl there, she was hungover after a hen. I could have been hungover myself a few times, and you're not going to push yourself to the end. So I know my body now, I know when I get injured, but I just miss it when I don't do it. And I've always said exercise is for the brain.
100%.
It's the stress booster. Yeah. And even when my kids were small, I would leave the house at night. Obviously, my ex-husband would have been there, and I would go to the gym because I knew I needed that hour before I faced back to kids and school the next day. And the hour would calm me, it would de-stress me, and it would put me into another zone. So I never want to lose that feeling. I'm walking at the moment with a girl I call a greyhound, and she's very fast, and I love the challenge. She's actually older than me by a few years. She's an amazingly fast walker, but I had to stop because it was killing my groin. But I'll get that fixed. I won't give in. And but the yoga that I've started is with Chai out in Yoga on Track, and I've never done yoga nidra and japa yoga before, and he does a mixture of everything. It's an hour and a half, and I'm so kind of fast paced. An hour and a half, I thought I'll never stick yoga for an hour and a half, but it's actually transformative.
Wow!
So that's a new thing I've taken up. Yeah. So
it's transformative for the brain or for your nervous system?
Yes, for the nervous system and for the regulation and for the calming. And usually after a session with him, I would just get into the car. Actually, one day he nearly died when I told him this. I drove across the road, so I wasn't even aware of traffic. I was in another zone, even though we do the kind of the bring yourself back before we leave. But yeah, it calms me. It's a tool. I've realised I have high stress levels, and it's more historic stress, I think. It's the stress that I would have gone through. But it's calming, and I'm adopting things that are calming at the moment.
That's brilliant. So from all the amazing and beautiful habits what you have incorporated in your life, what would be one? What is your favorite? And you would say, this is my to go. I will do it no matter what, because it keeps me going.
You see, I can't choose really, because it's a balance between exercise and it's a balance between doing the grounding. I've started Qigong. I would like to think I'd continue that. It's about finding time though to do the different things. Reading, definitely. Reading has empowered me hugely. I bought a book for my daughter's birthday, Peter Levine's Autobiography of Trauma. She asked for that book because she's on a journey as well. She's very inspirational, actually. She was my inspiration for an awful lot of what I'm doing. And
I think you're very inspirational. You don't see yourself. But I'm delighted that actually Maria joined me because of that reason. And one of the purposes of this podcast is to bring ordinary people who don't see themselves extraordinary. And I think it's so important to shine that light on ordinary people, because I think empowering is giving so much to the world, back to the world.
No, I agree with that where other people are concerned.
Okay.
Yeah, because that book is just, so much of it resonated with me. I haven't it finished. It's one of those books that's half open under my bed, so I'll dip in and out of it, like the one you were talking about, the, what's the name of it again? The one by Ren
Well-being starts with you.
Well-being begins with you. Begins with you.
So here is the book.
I read that and I didn't read it. I'm that's one that I'm reading at the moment, and I'm picking it up and putting it down. But I'm actually ready for it. And I met a girl, Sharon, in Jisk the other day, and she's working in the Peri in the spa. She organises. She's into all the holistic treatments. And I said, I have a book you'd love, and I got one from Rainer for her, so I must give it to her because it's not an easy read. You really have to be ready to take it on board, but it does resonate a lot as well. So I'm loving that these gurus.
It's a deep book. It's nothing.
Oh, it's very deep.
It is simple. There is nothing sophisticated.
No, the language isn't complicated.
Yes, no.
But
it is deep.
It is deep.
Yeah,
it is deep. And I mean, I have, what am I reading at the moment? I'm reading, is it Long Island by Colm Tóibín? And I've gone through a load of other books that are lovely, refreshing reads. But these books are so informative and they resonate in here.
Yeah.
Because I suppose of a life journey and being aware of your thought patterns and being aware of... And I have to give credit to you for starting me on that journey, but also supporting me through it. I know I was ready. And they always say the teacher appears when you're ready. Yeah. And it's empowered me hugely.
You can only support someone when person is ready. Yeah,
and that's what I was saying.
I said in one of my previous podcasts, I am guilty of, sometimes, I was more before, but I'm working on it, to force the change because I know it's so good and I know it's so positive and I am positive about the positiveness but you can't.
No, you can't.
No, you can hold space. You can show people the solution, the alternative, but they have to make their own choices.
They really do. And it's very sad when you watch somebody and you watch them maybe at some stages kill themselves through what they're doing, and you try to help and you know that they're not ready.
No.
And you really wish for them that they were ready, but that's their journey and they need to go on that journey. And you're watching and you're saying, I'm here if you need me, but sometimes they make the choice that they don't need you.
And that brings me back, I think 2 years ago, I got my first client, a gentleman, and the first ever feedback, review, testimonial what I got from a client was, if you are not ready, Smaranda is preparing you for. Now I'm laughing. But I think I realized what I did. Probably I was pushing because I knew
You knew.
Yeah, but I don't encourage pushing. I think people really need to, I think that person already came towards me. So that I didn't go and say,
you didn't go and find them. I'm taking you as a client, yeah.
But that's important as well, to have someone to preparing and to getting you more ready.
Yes. And you do need a push. I mean, there were times that I was in I suppose, a state that I was uncertain and I was nervous, and you knew exactly. So you've obviously fine-tuned that.
Yeah.
After the years of practice, you knew I could take the push, but it was a good bit into our sessions.
Yes, exactly.
And you knew I needed it because I was nervous or because I had a fear.
Yes,
and you said, right, you need to do this. It'll be fine. And then you were always there at the end of the phone or the text to say, it's okay, this is what's going on, or listen to this meditation.
Yeah.
And that support is unreal.
I think that support makes a difference.
It makes a massive difference, because when you go to the doctor, you get 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. And I've had very good GPs in my life. And I still have. And, but you can't call them, you can't text them or leave an email. I don't mean that you'd be harassing somebody 24/7 or even once a day. It's not even that. But it's just somebody that has your back there if there is something really bothering you. And that's what the difference. That's the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing the time. Before we wrap up, shoot me with a question.
Okay, where do you see yourself in 20 years' time?
The answer is I don't know, and I'm not even curious to know.
Okay.
Because I'm so grounded in present moment, and I want to make the most of it.
You've just given me a little, what should I say there? We have to live in the present. That's something I've learned. And there I go, ruining everything by saying, what are you going to be doing in 20 years' time? I don't mean ruining everything, but
I don't think it's wrong or right. I think that's because I can't. Some people say, oh, how? You are building a business, you are growing. Yes, I know, but tomorrow I can die. Or I can end my journey on the earth and
might be over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I learn to live every day as it's the last and the best.
Excellent.
And if I would be, I don't see myself retiring. I see myself still teaching, bringing light to the world. And
I would agree with you, knowing you. I think you will always be learning and you will always be helping. And that's your nature.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for being with me today.
It's been a pleasure. It's been less scary than I thought.